Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Okay, welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So glad to have you here. It's a great day to be alive, and you're going to love my guest. I want to just first say, if you are here for the first time, we talk about all things emotional eating. If you struggle with food and weight chronically, guess what? You're probably an emotional eater, and you got to address it. You can hop over to the Heal Your Hunger Tribe on Facebook and be a part of all that we're doing over there. Just go to Facebook and look up Heal Your Hunger Tribe, and please join us. We do Transformation Tuesdays every Tuesday morning. We've got other cool things and prizes that we offer, so I hope you'll join us over there. But for now, we're going to move on to my amazing guest who has been all over every place in God's green earth. I mean, he's been on every TV show you can imagine. And what he's doing is he's answering questions that you probably have had for a long time about what you really should and shouldn't eat, because God knows there's so much conflicting information out there. David, so glad to have you here.
Hey, great to be here, Tricia.
Yeah, thank you for your amazing work. I mean, you've spent the past 15 years interviewing hundreds of health advocates, scientists, and doctors. And really, you have just come out with a book that just debunks a lot of myths. I can't wait to get into that. So tell me really how you got into writing Food Sanity.
Well, I wrote Food Sanity after the frustration I endured as being a syndicated TV and health radio expert. I interviewed hundreds of doctors and scientists and best-selling authors, and I had one goal. I wanted to bring optimal health to my audience. It didn't happen. Instead, I confused them all, and I got confused because every guest would contradict the previous expert, leaving nothing but confusion. You got the paleo saying one thing, and the vegan, the Mediterranean, the Atkins. And I remember oatmeal used to lower blood sugar. Remember those days? It was good for you. Now, what are they saying? Avoid grains. They're bad for you, and they spike your blood sugar. Coffee used to cause disease. Worst thing you could drink. Now they say drink it. It actually cures disease. It makes you live longer. And beans, good for the heart. Remember that saying? Not anymore. Beans are bad for the heart, according to new lectin folks saying that beans are bad for you. And butter used to cause you to be fat. Now they say put it in your coffee because it'll help you lose weight. So that was the confusion. That's why I wrote Food Sanity, to really break through all the fads, facts, and fiction and answer the question, what are we supposed to be eating?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I really want to dig into that here. So let's talk about let's talk about this butter thing. I just got to go there. So butter in your coffee. I know Dave, we both know Dave Asprey. He's an amazing guy. I've actually met somebody who did his diet and lost 100 pounds. Do you subscribe to that philosophy or not?
I'm not really a big dairy fan. So when you're looking at anything from dairy with the casein, and we can go into that, there's just been so much studies. And I really looked at every single food group to find what was good, what was bad, what you should eliminate or just do mildly. But yeah, I think if you do casein every single day, it's not good. Ghee is better because it's clarified. It's a little bit better. But, like I said, there's so many other alternatives out there now that you really don't need to go with something from the cow. I think the cow is just not the best animal to be eating or consuming from their milk.
Right. And you say that for what reasons?
Well, the big reason is the casein. Casein is the protein that's in cow's milk. Now, what was casein designed for? It's designed to make a 100-pound calf turn into a 2,000-pound cow. It's to fatten them up. It's casein. Now, casein is also found in glue. Elmer's glue. Think of the cow logo, folks. It's actually casein's used to make glue to hold together wood. It's also made in plastic. So when we swallow this glue-like substance in our body sees it and attacks it, creates histamine. It creates all the itises, sinusitis and arthritis and psoriatic, you name all the itises and bronchitis. So it makes sense. It's inflaming the body, and studies show that. And then people say, but I need milk for calcium. That's the big one we hear, right? Well, let's debunk that right now. There is calcium in milk, but before it goes to your glass, it's pasteurized, means it's heated to destroy the bacteria, which is a good thing. Problem is, it's heating up the calcium and destroying a lot of it, makes it more insoluble to the body. But let's assume you had unpasteurized milk, okay? Hey, it's not heated. It has calcium, but 90% calcium, 10% magnesium. We need a 1-to-1 to get into the bones. So there's not enough magnesium in the unpasteurized milk. So where would you get strong bones from? Let's get them from the same place cows do. They don't drink milk, do they? They get it from plants. Let's go a step further. Gorillas, where do they get their strong bones? Not from milk. They get them from plants. The 1-to-1 ratio seems to be okay with them. Let's go a big step. Elephants, biggest boned animals, right? Strongest boned animals on the planet. They don't drink milk. They get their strong bones from plants. So we as humans can get all the calcium we need from spinach, sesame seeds, summer squash. You've got so many options where we have the ability to get strong bones. So that was thrown in by the American Dairy Association. I follow the money. It's a big, big organization. And that's why it's so pushed onto children to drink milk to grow up big and strong. But as you've heard, kids that drink milk get more asthma, more allergies, and more ear infections than kids that don't.
Yeah, got it. It's great to hear you talking about that, because we just go along like cattle, if you don't mind the pun. We just move along and believe what we're told, and especially by the advertisements. So what about beef? I know you have a little opinion about beef too.
Yeah, we're told also you got to have beef to be big and strong. We need it for strong muscles. But, if you look at the studies, and I mean, there's controversy with every type of food group. But when you look at the beef, everybody from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, World Health Organization, American Cancer Society, the list goes on and on and on, all agree the more red meat you eat, the more likely you are to get colon cancer, which is the second leading cause of death among cancers. So it's like more study, but the problem is they didn't know why. Why does that not apply to fish? Why don't we hear that about chicken? Why is it just red meat and beef? Why is that the one that's everybody's picking on? Well, there's a good reason. They found out why. It's a molecule called NEU5GC. It's in cattle, but it's not in us. And when we eat this molecule, our body inflames, it attacks it. And they have found this molecule inside colon cancer. So once upon a time, they knew smoking caused cancer. They just didn't know why. And then scientists said, hey, it's the nicotine in the cigarette. That's what's causing it. Now we know. It's the molecule NEU5GC in the beef that is causing inflammation. So it's not the best thing to eat. It's also very hard to digest. It takes 5 hours for red meat to digest. It takes 90 minutes for chicken, 30 minutes for fish. Why is beef so hard to digest? We don't have the enzymes. We don't have the teeth. We can't break it down. The number one cause of choking and needing the Heimlich maneuver, number one, you can Google it, folks, choking on a piece of undigested red meat that has lodged in the esophagus. We can't break it down. That's why we have to chew it and chew it and chew it. Now, a lion, he bites into red meat. What happens? Immediately, his saliva digests it. They're designed to. Our colon isn't designed for red meat. So I really look, you're hitting the two of the bad one. Now the rest are good, but those are really two. Might even this, stay away from the cow. There's other animals out there if you want to eat your animals, but primarily it should be a plant-based diet.
Loud and clear. Okay. So what about, nowadays, a really popular protein powder is beef protein. Does that escape the bad news that you're delivering here?
Yeah, it's chopping it up, putting it into a powder, drinking it or eating it, or drinking the hormones from its udders is still from a cow.
Okay.
You're still getting that. Yeah, there's so many other proteins. You get spiruline is great. It's a nice plant-based protein. You just don't need the beef. Now, why is that so shocking for you and a lot of people listening? Because we're so engraved with it, because the number one money maker in this country is cattle. Cows are the number one. Do you know why? I follow the money in my book. They are the number one customer of big pharma. When it comes to antibiotics, number one customers, farm animals. It's 80% of all antibiotics are sold to farm animals, and number one on the list is cattle. They get the antibiotics, and then the second is chicken. So it's not humans that are in business. So they want the big product buyers, which are cows, to be popular. Follow the money. And the least common, the least popular food that's actually, I call the redheaded stepchild of food in my book, Food Sanity. Guess what is it? The fish, right? Fish.
Yeah.
FDA says, stay away from fish, mercury. And we hear about, I talk about fish to my patients. Polluted waters. I don't drink. I don't want fish. And it's like, I love fish, and it's like, is fish bad? If it is, I keep hearing about the mercury. I researched it for me. Not great for my book, but I don't want to take it if it's bad for me. I want to live a long, healthy life. And I said, let me find all these people that have been poisoned by eating wild-caught fish for mercury. I couldn't find them. Instead, I found the opposite. Cultures that have more fish, tuna, which is high in mercury, have healthier lives, the epitome of health. Then I said, all right, well, we're talking 3 times a day fish. We're talking a lot of fish. And I said, all right, well, we've always heard if you're pregnant, watch out for the fish because of the mercury, right? We've heard that. I said, all right, let's research that. I looked at cultures where pregnant females eat more fish, their children have higher IQs than those that don't eat fish. So then I said, well, where's all this coming from? Where's this fear? The FDA says, warning, warning, mercury in fish, but they don't warn you about the mercury in our fillings, do they? They don't warn you about mushrooms that has mercury. High fructose corn syrup loaded with mercury. Do you hear anything bad about that? No. Who gets picked on? Fish. How come? Fish don't use antibiotics. They don't use growth hormones. They don't use food dyes. They don't use sulfur drugs. Wild-caught fish, right from the ocean to the restaurant. There's no money. Follow the money. There's money in the other things. And by the way, just so you know, mercury is dangerous. You don't want to have mercury. It's not something we want. But I researched it, and in my book, I showed that if you have more selenium than you do mercury, it cancels out any negative effects. So selenium protects the brain, protects the cells, it's anti-carcinogenic, protects you from cancer. And in my book, Food Sanity, I have 18 of the most commonly eaten fish. All of them, except for one, has more selenium than mercury, except for the mako shark. So avoid the mako shark if you see that on the menu. But the other wild-caught fish, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
So you don't subscribe to the larger the fish, the greater amount of mercury, like a tuna versus a sardine or a salmon?
No, so the larger the fish, you're going to get more of selenium. So the 18 that I have are larger fish and smaller fish. So again, it's not the issue that we've been bombarded. Let's do the numbers, okay? A filling is 27 parts per million mercury, 24/7. 24/7. The highest containing fish with the most mercury is 0.6 parts per million, one meal. And it has selenium that protects you. And we always hear how bad that is, but the fillings are fine to me. And then you've got thimerosal, which is the vaccinations and all these other drugs that have mercury. We don't hear about that. All we hear about, stay off fish, mercury. So is mercury bad for, hey, if mercury's bad for you, you got to stay off cattle. There is mercury in cattle. I mean, it's around. You can't hide from it. But I want mercury where it's got selenium in it, so I'm okay with it if it's in fish because it's protecting you. Remember how we used to know that eggs were high cholesterol? They told us don't eat eggs, and it was years. Remember, we had to do the egg whites.
Oh yeah, that's how we grew up.
Well, then they said it's the yellow that's bad. It's okay to eat the white. Remember? So now egg beaters everywhere you went was white omelets. Then science found that hey, there's lecithin and choline in the yellow, which actually cancels out the cholesterol. So you can eat the egg and it balances it out. And now there was a 14-year study by Harvard that said there's not one documented case of anybody's cholesterol going higher from having eggs. It was all a myth. Same with fish. Fish does contain mercury, but the selenium balances it out the same with fish. It's not a big issue.
Oh, that's good to know. I mean, I don't think anybody feels nowadays like mercury fillings are a good idea. I think we've all kind of at least woken up to that fact.
You'd be surprised though, because there's still dentists that do it and they're saying it's fine, you know. But that was just one example. There's so many others. So I just don't think fish are the big you stay away from. There's so many health benefits. There's omegas. There's fat. It's just such a good thing to eat.
Yeah, and it's lean too, so it's you're not eating a whole bunch of fat. Right. So let's talk about pork since we're on a roll with the meats. Let's talk about pork because you have some things to say about that.
Yeah, you know the old saying that we've heard, sweating like a pig. Oh, I worked so hard, I was sweating like a pig. Well, that can't be true because pigs don't sweat. So that's not true. And because pigs don't sweat, what that means is the toxins can't be released because there's no sweating. And the reason they don't sweat it, or the reason they wallow in the mud is because they don't sweat. So they want to get cool. So pigs aren't dirty animals. They're actually clean because if there's water around, they're always in the water. Of course, when man keeps them in captivity, they look for mud, but they're looking for water. So they're actually a clean animal. So, filthy like a pig, it's because they wallow in the mud to stay cool. The problem is when we eat the outer layer, we're actually eating things closer to the toxins. And it's interesting. Some pigs are so toxic on the outside that if a rattlesnake bites a pig, the snake is more likely to die than the pig. So if you love pork, if that's something that you want to eat, stay away from the outer layer. Go for the inner layer. Maybe the pork loin, tenderloin, that's the lean piece, away from that. And people say, but I love my ham. Hey, if you want occasional ham, put it on a rack and put linear slices so all the fat drips off. Just stay away from the fat, and that's the key with that.
Okay, so the fat is where is in the outer layer, and that's the problem. But that's where most bacon that we eat comes from, right?
Exactly. Bacon's not one of those. It's funny. Everybody loves their bacon. It's like, show me a study where bacon's good for you. I want to find one that they've done double. I say, oh, the person who ate the most bacon had the best, healthiest heart. It just doesn't happen.
Wow.
We all kind of know that bacon is not healthy. And of course, everybody loves it. But like I said, if you want to do it occasional, but here's what gets me. These people that do bacon every single day, they're doing beef for dinner and hamburger for lunch. I'm sorry, folks, that's just science and common sense just doesn't rationalize that kind of diet. If you look at cultures that live to be over 100, we're talking in my book, Food Sanity, I talk about people live 110, 115, 120, still exercising, still hiking, still having sex without the blue pill over 100 years of age. Who doesn't want that? Wow, that's healthy. They eat very, very little. They eat very little animal products and very little, if any, red meat. So I live by a flexitarian diet. It's the marriage between flexible and vegetarian. It's 80-20, 80% plant-based, 20% animal. And if you look at cultures, that's about what they eat. And that's the healthiest ratio. Don't reverse it. These folks that are doing 80% fat and bacon and hamburgers and a little bit of fruit and vegetables, if that, it's awful. It's a fad diet. It'll be gone in a few years.
So you are not loved by the paleo institution, apparently.
Now, the big thing with paleo, I love paleo where their process is clean food. Stay away from, stay away from the stuff made in factories, go back in the old days. But then when they look at paleo diet, they're saying, oh, eat meat like a caveman. So I said, all right, well, one is who cares what the caveman ate? But if it's so important, let me research it. I found out from science, reputable science, that their diet was primarily plant-based. Cavemen ate very, very little meat, if any, because they couldn't catch it. We believe that, we've been told that these cavemen are big, strong, and they carried the carcass over one shoulder and the weapon over the other. But that's how the movies show them. But in real life, cavemen were 5 feet tall, 171 pounds. That's documented. Let's call it what it is. That's an oompa, a little short oompa. If you hand him a spear and say, all right, little guy, go fight a flying tiger in Barrow Mai, do you think he had the speed, the endurance, and the ability to hunt a wild mammoth-sized animal? No. Well, why did he have the weapons? I prove in my book, cavemen were the hunted, not the hunters. They carried that for self-protection, not just from animals, but other cavemen. Now, would they eat meat, animals and meat? Yes, but if it was the only thing left, if they had the choice, obviously they don't want to risk their life going after a wild animal. They're going to go for berries and fruits and legume and grains. Plus, if they did get lucky and catch a lion or tiger or bear, it's only good for 5 hours. They didn't have refrigeration, so it's going to rot and die. So all that work for one meal, where they can actually carry big satchels of wheat and berries, and it's common sense too. It's not just the science, it's common sense. So if they didn't have fruits or vegetables or plants or berries, yes, they'd have to go eat animals. Look at a chimpanzee. That's closest to our ancestor. Forget cavemen. 1.6% difference between our DNA and the chimps. Same teeth, same digestive system, gestation, 9 months period. Okay, we're very similar to them. And what do they eat? 95% plants, 5 to 10% animals or small bugs, only if it's the last thing they can find. So forget eating like a caveman. Let's eat like a chimp if that's what we really need to be like. It's close to what we are.
So when you talk about the 80-20 rule, are you talking about every meal should be 80-20, or most of your meals should be vegetables only, and once in a while, you should be eating meat?
Yeah, just in general, 80-20. So if you've got, just a little piece of fish, a little piece of chicken with some vegetables around it, or a salad with maybe a nice salmon on top, wild caught on top, that's a healthy meal. And of course, you can mix with eggs. The point being is you just don't want to bombard with so much animal product. We just weren't designed. And even if you look at that's the thing. In my book, I use a common science meets common sense approach to figuring out the culinary conundrum. We can't really trust science because it changes, right? Every month. This is bad. So I show you how to tap into science, but make sure it's not biased. That's spelled B-U-Y-A-S-E-D, bought and paid for. But then we look at the instincts. What's your gut telling you? What should we eat? And then we look at the biology. Are we designed to eat it? So listen, if you combine common science meets common sense meets biology, you have a system to show you what we should and shouldn't eat.
Okay. And talk to us about grains. So if you're eating mostly vegan or vegetarian diet, are you an advocate of grains?
Yeah, I think you're breaking up. I think you asked me about grains, right? Yeah, that's another interesting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is where it starts going funny. Let me ask the question again because it might not have recorded. Talk to me about grains, David, because if you're advocating a vegan or vegetarian diet, plant-based diet, that includes grains, yes?
Includes grains. And what's so interesting about grains is, we've had, 5 decades of how great grains are and how great beans are. And all of a sudden this book comes out and it's like, oh, they're bad. And they says, oh, they've only been out for 10,000 years. And science says that's not true. Google it, folks. You can see that science has proven that our cavemen ate grains, they ate beans, they ate legumes. In fact, University of Utah says 40% of their diet was gluten-containing grains. For 3.5 million years, we've been digesting grains. So I think that we've adapted to digesting them, right? Now, people say, but wait a minute, I take gluten grains and I feel sick. You're right. If you have celiac disease, you can't have gluten. You're allergic to it. That's an allergy. If you're allergic to peanuts, you can't have peanuts. But the point is, there's a lot of people that have gluten sensitivity, and that's where they take gluten and it inflames them. It makes them not feel well. Don't blame the gluten. We can't blame gluten. Why 15, 20 years ago was gluten okay to eat? Why is your parents okay eating it? Why all of a sudden the last 10, 15 years, gluten has become an issue? Don't blame the food. It's what's sprayed on top of the food, what we have inside of our food, and sometimes what we even cook our food on that causes our microbiomes to not digest this tough protein that's in gluten. So we can play, let's just get rid of gluten. Well, in 5, 10 years, there'll be another food we got to get rid of. So my view is this: forget the smoke. Let's get to the fire. What's causing people to be so sensitive to gluten? It's because they're hitting this pesticide, and that has been proven to cause leaky gut, makes it inflamed, and we can't digest gluten. It's more difficult. But there's a way to fix that. You don't have to be afraid of grains. Grains are healthy. In fact, there's so many let me just one thing. I've got so many studies, but I want to read one because this stuff's not talked about. Okay, this is in May from the book Food Sanity. May of 2017, last year, the British Medical Journal published research conducted by Harvard School of Public Health. They analyzed over 100,000 subjects for 25 years. That's a big study. They found participants with the highest intake of gluten-containing grains had significantly lower rates of heart disease than those with the lowest consumption of gluten. In 2015, October, the World Health Organization said you have a 17% decreased risk of colorectal cancer by having gluten-containing grain. And then more and more and more. I have so many studies. So I look too. I wanted to say, well, where's all this grain fear coming from? It's the microbiomes. It's not the grain. Don't blame the grain, folks. Grain is healthy. It's heart healthy. It helps lower your blood sugar. It helps digestion. It helps get rid of cancer.
Okay, so talk about grains lowering your blood sugar, because most of us have experienced or heard about it raising your blood or spiking your blood sugar.
Yeah, again, you can do temporary spikes to see certain areas if you're prone to that. For example, like, oatmeal. People say stay away from oatmeal. Oatmeal lowers my blood sugar. I feel great. Some people can actually have oatmeal and they have a sensitivity to it. So then they're going to react differently. So it really affects people differently. Some people say, are you crazy? I do oatmeal. I feel crappy all day. I'm like, really? I have it. I love it. I feel so good. I have energy. And it's like, it just feels, I'm full. So it's really person to person. And I think the people that are having reactions to these foods is, like I said, it's not food because, like I said, your grandma had no issue with that. We do now. We're reacting to certain foods just because we're just not addressing these chemicals, the antibiotics, these hormones, these BPAs and stuff that we're getting in our food. That can have a big effect on our blood sugar, especially when we eat certain foods.
Well, I will just tell you from the emotional eater standpoint, of which I am one, I am so sensitive to sugar, definitely a sugar addict. And so my body, it does spike very easily from carbs, any kind of carbs, beans or grains or whatever. So it's a different perspective. So I get what you're saying about the chemicals. But in terms of, emotional eaters have to filter a lot of health information through the filter of being an emotional eater, because it's not really, is this on paper good for you or not? It's also the fact of, will this trigger a craving for more? And oftentimes carbs do that.
Yeah. Here's the thing with grains, and with sugar, I have a diet, and my diet in my book is simple. It's one sentence. If it's white, keep it out of sight. There's my diet, folks. One sentence. You will lower your blood sugar. You'll sleep better. You'll curb your cravings. You will love life. Now, what does that mean? That would mean sugar and corn and dairy and flour and salt, or anything made out of those ingredients. And you're just saying, well, now, by the way, that doesn't include like white poultry or garlic or white cauliflower. That's fine if it's natural. But the white processed foods, get them out of the way. Now, people say, well, that gets rid of everything I love. Well, you know what? You can have everything you love, find a natural version of it. People say salt is so bad. Here's what I love. I love people saying salt's the worst thing. I go, really? Our body's 70% salt water. How is it bad? It's what we're made out of. Without salt, we die. You just don't want the bad kind of salt, which is the white processed table salt. That's awful. That makes you hungry. What happens is they filter out all the 80 minerals that make you full. You want black Hawaiian volcanic salt. That's my favorite. Or Redmond ancient sea salt. Love it. Or even do the pink Himalayan salt, because there's minerals. Makes you full. Makes you not crave foods. You know who knows that you crave foods when you have this white processed salt? Movie theaters. That's why they salt their popcorn. They know you're coming out there for jujubes and a Coke. Fast food restaurants know you're coming back for another French fries. Same with sugar. As you say, when you have sugar, it makes you crave more. It's empty. It's stripped. But we have a sweet tooth. God didn't make a design flaw. We love sweets. Just find a better sweet. Go with the monk fruit or xylitol from the birch tree or stevia. You can still have sweets. So in my book, I kind of show you that avoid the white foods, but it doesn't mean you have to avoid the foods you love. You just find a better version of them.
Yeah, I always say stevia is God's gift to emotional eaters.
So true. So true.
This is great stuff, David. I really appreciate it. And your books, it's really cutting edge. And so anybody, if you want to just jump over to Amazon and pick this book up. Everybody, this is an amazing book. You must pick it up. You can go to Amazon and order it right now. And really get the research and all the cutting edge information that David has for you in Food Sanity. David, you also have a free ebook for people. Can you talk about that? And we're going to put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, what happens is as I wrote the Food Sanity, it's pretty thick. I didn't have room for recipes. I have a little bit of it in there, and I said, wow, maybe I'll do that in my second book. And people kept asking. So I said, all right, I'm going to create it. I'm going to give it away. It's a companion book to this. It's 92 pages. It has 30 recipes, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and desserts, delicious desserts that you will love. You don't have to not like food. And it's at foodsanity.com, and it's a free download. You can actually go, and it's an ebook. And you'll see some of eat this, not that, and certain foods that have high levels of too much, sugar that you want to watch out for, and different levels and stuff to eat and stuff as well.
That sounds amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much. Everybody, he's offering that as a gift for free. We appreciate that, David.
Thanks. Been great.
Oh, it's good to have you. Congratulations, and keep doing your wonderful work in the world. Okay. David, I have one last question for you, and that is, what is your deepest hunger?
My deepest hunger, if it's not food wise, is actually making a difference in this world. You know, when I'm 6 feet under, I want to know that I made a difference even though I'm gone. And that's really what drives me, is really I look in the mirror and I say, what can I do different today that'll affect somebody else besides myself? And that's my biggest hunger. If it's my hunger where it's kind of my cheat food would be popcorn. I write about it in the book, and you heard me say stay away from corn. But if you do USDA organic, occasionally you can actually enjoy those little guilty pleasures. And I write about my popcorn story in my book and how actually I lost weight by getting off of it, but I didn't quit it completely. There's a little bit every now and then. So that's my guilty pleasure, and that's my guilty hunger.
Okay. Thank you so much. Emotional eaters have a long history with popcorn. I'll just tell you that much. Very full history, so to speak. Thank you so much. It's great to have you. It's wonderful information. Keep doing your wonderful work in the world, David.
Great, Trish. Appreciate the invite. Thanks much. It's been fun.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this show and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.